And welcome back to the studio. Today we've got a slightly different show for you. Normally on Roundtable, we pull a couple of different people in that don't really know each other, toss a couple of topics out and see what happens. Today we've got kind of the opposite of a bunch of people that don't know each other. We've got 3 of the 4 members of the Victoria Cougars coaching staff. So we're going to go left to right, just a little easier. We've got Cam Sargent, Brody Coulter, Sam McMullen. First, I want to say welcome, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I know this is probably a little bit of a new experience for you guys. Have you guys ever done the podcast scene before? Have you ever sat down on especially with the camera pointed at your face? That's probably a new one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do a lot of talking with the group, but the electronics around me are a little intimidating. That's for sure.
So we've got all 3 of you guys are former Junior B players. All 3 of you have played for the Victoria Cougars. 2 of you played for a couple of other teams in the leagues, the Vancouver Island Junior League as well. So I wanted to start with maybe people that aren't familiar with Junior B specifically. For those people who don't follow the VI, there may be a negative connotation to the whole Junior B, especially from when I was a kid and it got the Jungle Bee name and that kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit about Junior B. Brody, as the head coach of the Victoria Cougars, why don't you start off, give everybody a quick rundown what Junior B is like in BC, specifically on the island.
Yeah, I think Junior B in BC is definitely the strongest in Canada. The league itself is a developmental league, obviously trying to move guys on to the Western League or the BCHL or further east in some cases. I think it's a great league. I mean, obviously we've played in it. Programs at this level provide kind of a junior A experience, getting guys ready for the next level. And for me, what I think you get out of it is, what we tell players coming in is, playing against 20-year-old players who, for the most part, the 20-year-olds in this league, a lot of them are capable of playing in Junior A. So if you're a guy who wants to play Junior A or who wants to move on to the next level, I mean, practicing against guys who have that skill set, who already are ready to probably play at that level, and maybe they're here because they're working or they're here because they want to win a championship. I think in terms of development, I mean, it's the practice time that you get is the most important thing. And playing against guys who are Junior A caliber players, I mean, that's in my opinion, the best way to get yourself ready.
Now, there's a couple of other different avenues you can take in the junior hockey age bracket. A lot of people look at major midget as one of those paths that they try and take. Maybe Cam or Sam can jump in on this one. Why would you go Junior B over major midget? What's the difference between the two, and why would you say Junior B better than major midget, or maybe it's not? What would you guys say about that?
Yeah,
just jump in.
Yeah, I can take this one. Obviously, I have a very neutral approach to this because I played major midget, played in the VI, I ran the major midget program, and now I coach in the VI. So I've had an opportunity to see kind of both positives of each league, and it really depends on the player, and it really depends on where you're at with what you want to do. The major midget league is a very, very good league for that 15, 16, 17-year-old, and it's very high exposure. But at the same time, like Brody said, you're playing against older players in Junior B, so there's that positive avenue to it as well. So looking at both programs and looking at both leagues, I really think that there's a niche for each one. It's just a matter of who you are as a player and who you are coming up and what you want to really do. I came into the league, I played 1 year major midget and then played Junior B at 16, and my thought process was get me ready to play against older players to make that jump to Junior A. So that being said, a lot of players play 2 years of major midget and then just make the jump to Junior A right away. So it's really dependent on who you are as a player, what you want to get out of each league, and then where you want to go from there.
Cam, any thoughts on the major midget side of things?
Yeah, I was the same way. I played academy over major midget for 2 years, so I was at Pacific Coast Hockey Academy, and I think Junior B is obviously a great league. I played lots of years in it too, and it's just about when you're ready to make the jump. I think for a lot of kids at 16, you're big enough, you're strong enough to play against 20-year-olds, and a lot of kids maybe it takes that extra year to 17. I just think for a lot of guys, getting that experience against older players is so valuable, and you can't really get that in major midget or academy. So once kids are ready to be in Junior B and play against older players, I think they should make the jump as soon as you can, really.
I think it's important too, like where you're coming into in your situation. I mean, if you're coming into, a junior B lineup and you're going to be on the fourth line, not playing much, well, I think it makes sense to be in major midget or somewhere where you're going to have the puck on your stick more and more ice time and all that kind of stuff. Because realistically, I mean, major midget and junior B are both offering, lots of ice time. They're offering, in terms of the off ice stuff, it's all pretty similar. I think it's the program that you're going to. Is the coach a good fit? Does the program represent, what you want to do with hockey? And I also think it matters, where you fit in that team's lineup. I think if you can play with 20-year-olds and practicing against 20-year-olds every day and play a regular shift, I think you do better yourselves. I think, in the long run, you're going to be a better player for that. But at the same time, if you're coming into a team and you're not playing on the special teams and you're on the fourth line of a team, then you're not going to develop as much. So I think it depends on the player, exactly like these guys said. And that's something that we work through with these kids every day.
Now, one thing I've seen personally, I never played in the VI, but have been around the league a long time. The league itself has grown quite a bit in the last. I've now been with the Victoria Cougars I'm in my 11th season, and I was broadcasting for the Cougars when all three of you guys played at various points, and the league has changed quite drastically from before when you played, Brody, before that to now. It's gone from a couple of decent teams with a couple of really good players to a hyper-competitive league that produces a lot of good players. Was there some sort of transition or mindset change along the years? Because it seems to have changed quite a bit over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think, it's the competitive thing is a big thing. I think teams don't like losing, and I think there's certain teams like Victoria and Campbell River that have kind of set the precedent. And if you want to compete, you have to, do what they're doing, and you have to make sure that you're taking care of the details and you're putting forth a program that can attract players that and ultimately allow you to win. And I think if you're a kid who wants to make junior A, you want to pick the best program possible to help you do that. And teams need to make sure they're doing their part to make sure they can attract the kids that are going to help them get to those spots. So I think it's just ultimately 2 teams, 3 teams taking the lead on this, and then everybody else kind of following suit, because what's best for the league is if we're all competitive and it's not just a 2 or 3 team league. So
yeah, and I think on that stance, when Brody and I came into the league, it was kind of known for this is where you go to finish your 20-year-old year, and then you're done. Whereas in the recent years, from where we started to where we ended at 20, the league has really started to provide an after, like what's your after plan, and go NCAA. And the league is well known in the NCAA world now that this is a highly recruited league for our 20-year-olds. And now there's opportunity to continue your hockey career. Whereas before, I feel like that wasn't really the stance, and it wasn't really the stance of junior B. But now it's kind of where you used to go to finish your career, but now it's another stepping stone. It's another stepping stone to continue your career. If you want to go to school, now that opportunity is there. And near the end of the year, we have tons of NCAA teams talking about our 20-year-olds and just pretty much begging us to get in contact with them to recruit them and to bring them over to their program. So I think that's the biggest shift of where it was and where it is now, and why junior B's looked and have a lot more players coming to it is because of that, having that development to go play NCAA.
Or be a Cougars coach.
Yeah.
That seems to be a theme today.
Yeah.
There's also a fourth Cougars coach, the one lone member of the quartet that's not here today, Jake Stoltz, is also a former Cougar player. But like everyone else, he's got himself a real job in air quotes outside of this too. So we'll get him back another day. We'll have to find more mics to get him in here. Mm-hmm. I didn't want him and Cam to have to get too cozy in the corner there.
They would like that.
Yeah.
Like
D coaches. Yeah.
Now, all three of you guys have had playing experience in this league, and has the coaching style changed from? As the broadcaster, I don't see the dressing room side of things. And as someone who played competitive sports, I know the dressing room can be a very different environment from team to team. But there was specifically Mark Van Helvert, who's holds all kinds of coaching records in the VI, and he coached. I think he coached all three of you guys at some point, didn't he? Cam, did you have Marco on the bench at all? No,
never.
No. Okay, so. It was he was an interesting character, especially his interviews.
To say the least.
his post-game interviews were some of the most entertaining ones I had, especially if the Cougars played terribly. So I see a lot of his on-ice style coming out in you, Brody, though. I see a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing, very similar. I'm getting a lot of flashbacks from when you were playing for now that you guys on the bench. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Marco? And I don't know, you got some stories for us that maybe we couldn't hear before. Yeah. We're not restricted to the league broadcast standards here, but I've always been interested in what it was like in the dressing room with Marco.
Yeah, I mean, it was just to touch on your first point. I think coaching has changed definitely for the better. I think. I mean, obviously, old school guys, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. Not that we don't do that at times. It's definitely still has its part.
More than times.
Yeah, but I think it's just more now. You got to have a relationship with kids. You have to make sure they respect you. That's the first and foremost. I mean, if they don't have respect for you, then why would they listen to you, right? So it does fall more on a coach now to build that, you're a mentor at the end of the day. And if they don't respect what you're doing in that process, then, why would they listen to you? So I think there's definitely more that goes into it on the relationship side of it with players, being a friend at times and not just being, an asshole, for the sake of a better word.
So more of that parent role, less of the dictator role?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a time and a place for both. But yeah, I think it's more of, being a friend and making sure you're there when they need you, and less of yelling and screaming and making sure that they're scared of you. Maybe it's a better way to put it.
I know there was a lot of garbage cans that suffered in the Marco era.
Yeah, they still do. We still throw the odd garbage can. It's more chairs now. Those foldable chairs are good. We set those up when we have to. They're more of a prop. We don't actually use them, but when I need to throw one, they're always set up in the right spot. So
the old WWE technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as Marco stories go, I mean, obviously a great coach. There's plenty we could tell. I mean, there's lots that stand out for me. I know there was one game. This was years ago. I was actually coaching with him at the time. Sammy might have been a player actually, but we were beating Peninsula. I think it was like 6-0 in the third period. And he was a guy who was a stickler for details, as you should be as a coach. And I think one of our better players, Nathan Loyson, missed a back check late in the game. And Peninsula ended up scoring, and the game finished 6-1. And we go into the room after, and Marco was always good about being in the coach's office. He had his way. He would never really show his true emotion. He always hit it very well. And I know we came in the room, and the boys were obviously happy, a 6-1 win. And he came in the room and basically said, put your workout stuff on. I'll see you upstairs. And everyone was like, what? Like we just won 6-1. Like, what's going on? And we went up into the coach's office, or we went up into the crow's nest. That's where we did our workouts post game. And he says, "All right, boys, let's do 50 squats." Now the guys are like, "Okay, you don't say no to Marco," so they just start doing 50 squats. And they get about 10 in, and he goes, "You know what, boys, stop." And they're like, "Okay," so they stop. And then he says, "Let's do 150 squats because Nathan Loyson doesn't know how to back check in the last 10 minutes of a period." And that went on for probably like an hour and a half. And like I say, the accountability thing, there was no shortage of that with him. And there's probably plenty of stories like that. But ultimately, I mean, the guy, he was a winner. He knew what he was doing. So no discredit, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was not a fun workout afterwards. It's a pretty similar story on my front is my first game with the Victoria Cougars when I got traded. We played Oceanside at home, and it was a Sunday game. And I think we won 4-0 or 5-0. And to me, I'm like, oh, that's a good win, and maybe it's a little sloppy here and there throughout the second period, but boys are happy, like Brody was saying, and coaches come in and says, "Yep, get your workout stuff on and head upstairs." And I got traded with Garrett Kemmler from the Braves at the time, and we both kind of looked at each other like, "Is he actually serious?" And Mark Walton was the captain at the time. He's like, "Yeah, he's serious. Like, we'll meet you upstairs." And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but at the same time, when you do raise that trophy and that banner, you look back on those moments and it's like, I'll do another 10 of those if I have to, if it means to win the championship. So during the time, you're like, this sucks. Like, what is this guy doing? But at the same time, when you do win that championship, it's like, okay, I can kind of see a little bit where he's coming from. Maybe not all the time, but a little bit of where he's coming from.
Do you guys have a little bit more perspective now that you're standing on the bench for that type of mentality?
I was going to say 100%. I mean, there's games that we win now where I'm after the game, like I'm livid, like because it's not about, what we try and teach players is it's not about, ultimately we want to make everybody better. We have a goal every year to be the most improved team that, in the league. And no matter where you start, sometimes you start really, really well, and that becomes very difficult. And especially, you can win games, and what young kids have a tough time understanding is that when you win a game, yeah, it's great that you won, but if you think big picture, maybe we didn't get better today. We cheated at times when we could, because we could get away with it. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a BCHL player, you know, and you have those habits, I mean, it's not going to work. You're going to get exposed and you're going to end up back at this level again. And the same thing goes for winning, you know, and we have a goal to win a Cyclone Taylor Cup, and, you know, you're playing a game on a Thursday and you're playing, you know, a team in our league and you're up by a couple goals and you start to cheat. Well, unfortunately, those habits carry through to the games you don't want to lose, and those habits are stuff that's going to hurt you in the long run. So it's tough as a coach. That's what I found is probably the biggest struggle is recognizing situations to go in the room after and to make sure the vibe isn't, you know, you're not being too negative, but at the same time, you know, making sure the message gets across that, hey, we may have won tonight, but we didn't really play the way we wanted to play. And I think that's something every coach struggles with.
Yeah, I think on that front, like going from a player to a coach, as a player, you're worried about the game. You're worried about, let's get this job done. Let's win. Maybe you're worried about scoring, whatever it is. And you don't really take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And as a coach, that's all you're looking at. All you're looking at as a coach is like, okay, how can we get better every single day to get to a position to get to a Cyclone Taylor Cup? And as a player, you could think like these coaches are crazy. Like, why are they mad at us right now? We just won 6-1. And that's where you can kind of relate to Marco and what he did for us is he put that into perspective of, as a coach, you're looking at down the road. You're looking into March, not just a win in September. And I think, Sarge, you could probably touch on that too, playing under Brody and myself for a year or two, and can understand that, especially being the first year coaching. I feel like you can touch on that a little bit.
I'm sure the boys lit us up a couple times.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely changed. I mean, going from one room to the other, it's a really surprise seeing the other side of it. Like hearing stories from these guys about Marco and now seeing kind of what it's really like for them behind the scenes. It really puts a lot of light on what it's like to be a coach. And, you know, maybe some of those moments where they come in kicking and screaming, they're really not that upset about the game, but, you know, it's something to get the boys going and it's just something to inspire rather than true anger. But it is just, it's really funny to see. And it's funny to see hearing Brody talk about Marco and see the sides that he's took from Marco and the stuff he's kind of cut out and realized, you know, that stuff's not really going to work anymore. Like you win a game 6-1, you take guys up to a crow's nest and do a workout. A lot of guys aren't going to respond to that anymore. You know, they're going to want to pack it in.
Yeah.
They're going to quit.
Yeah, that's
for
trades.
So it's funny how players have changed, how coaching has changed, and maybe if Marco's coaching today, who knows how many players be willing to play for him nowadays. So.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you mentioned something. There's that championship at the end of the season. When you look back and you're like, okay, maybe on that day I might have hated his guts, but now I understand it. And Brody, you've said something to me a couple times this year that kind of stuck in my head. The Cougars were on a 9-game winning streak, and there was one of those wins where you weren't overly happy with the play. And you mentioned that it's hard to teach when you're winning.
Definitely. Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is the very next game you ended up losing. But how important is it to be able to try and teach? Because if you're winning games, you're not necessarily playing well. But these kids, because at the end of the day, these guys playing, they are kids. Sometimes they don't recognize that. They don't recognize the little mistakes. Maybe they played better than the opponent, but they still didn't play to that next level. So how hard is it for a team? At the time of recording this, you guys are 11-1. How are you teaching when you're winning like that?
Yeah, I think it's the hardest thing in coaching. I mean, I think every coach struggles with this at some point, right? Like, I think for kids at that age, because we were there, right? I was the same way. I remember coming home nights and being like, I don't understand what we're doing. We're winning. And, you know, when you're playing that last game of the season and you lose, you start to put it into perspective. You know, maybe I wish I had done a few things differently. So for us, it's about trying to send that message now and not have them lose that last game of the season. So yeah, I think for us is to being as open and honest with them as we can. You know, we've had a few conversations this year on practice days where we kind of let them know, like, hey, just because we win a game doesn't mean that we played well. And ultimately, you want to treat every game as if you're playing Game 7 of the finals or the one game showdown in the Cyclone Taylor Cup. You want to treat every game like that because you want to be as prepared as you can be when you get to that moment. So our group's been good. You know, obviously we don't have the luxury of having a ton of returning players this year just because of the way the last two seasons have gone. And the only player that we have left who's actually played in the Cyclone is Dylan Jess, our captain. And a lot of our veteran players, I mean, they played 10 games here last year, but that's it. So it's a lot easier to get that message across when you have a room that's filled with players who've lost that game before. having to get that message across to players who are coming from academies or major midget or the midget A League here or from Calgary or wherever that is, where they haven't experienced that loss yet. That's where the struggle is. So that's what we're working through right now. We have a good group. Our guys have done a good job. They're definitely willing to learn. That's the one thing nice about having a few younger bodies is they're more willing to learn on certain things. Not like Sergi when he was a 20-year-old. He's unteachable. But other than that, yeah. So that's something every coach goes through, right? So we're working through it. Our guys have been good to this point. Just keeping them motivated is the biggest thing.
You touched on the last 2 seasons. Obviously, one was cut short late in the season, and then one was just a wash after a dozen games for obvious reasons. But how difficult has it been trying to recruit in the middle of a pandemic? This offseason obviously was considerably longer than a normal offseason, but it was also very different. Now, Brody, you were filling the role of general manager for a while. Sunil Karad, who was the head coach for the Cougars prior to you, has now stepped into that role, and I think he's done a fantastic job. But you were filling that role for a while, and now Sonny's in there, and you're helping out and all that. How different has this offseason been from a regular one?
Yeah, I'm sure Cam can probably attest to what it's been like as a player playing through those seasons. But I know as a coach, it's been difficult. It's just the uncertainty going through it, even talking to players in the offseason. And unfortunately, it has turned a lot of players off hockey. I mean, we talked to numerous kids who were either, going to school here or they were coming to UVic from out of town, or even players who were available from other teams who just lost interest because the last 2 years were so difficult. So it's been tough. I mean, obviously, kids who are hungry to play in Junior A and the BCHL, they're interested, and it was easy enough to talk to them and to sell the program and all that kind of stuff. But there was definitely, I would say, 50% of the kids we talked to were, wasn't necessarily us and another team. They were contemplating between it was us and maybe not playing hockey at all. So that was the biggest thing I noticed in terms of recruitment. We weren't recruiting against other teams all the time. It was more or less we were recruiting against not playing hockey altogether. So, but yeah, it's been a tough few years for everybody. I'm sure Sargi can touch on the actual playing part of it.
Yeah, it was definitely tough, especially the last year, just kind of not knowing. It felt like every 2 weeks it was, it'll be another 2 weeks and we'll play, and just hearing the news every time that it was going to be, 2 more weeks or 1 more month. And it just really kind of brought you down. Like, you come to the rink every day and you're working so hard, and the coaches are putting in a lot of effort too. And it just felt like it was all for nothing at some point. And when that season finally did wrap up, it was hard, but it was at least like some closure that, like, yeah, we're actually not going to play here. And I understand these kids who now play, and they're kind of turned off of hockey. It was a hard past 2 seasons, not really getting anything out of it. You played and you practiced, probably hundreds of times without even touching the ice in a game. And that's hard. That's hard on your brain. It's hard on your body. And so I understand why some guys just don't want to do it anymore. So, and
I think too, with the recruiting, usually you watch a guy at 15 throughout the years, like, okay, let's bring him to camp. He comes to camp. Okay. Like, what, next year's his year. Like, I feel like if he fills out and maybe gets a little bit quicker, like he could come into our team. Well, this year it was pretty much elite prospects. We're literally looking at elite prospects and it's like, okay, like, what has he done 2 years ago? And was he a good player 2 years ago? And taking chance on kids that maybe we haven't even seen play. And that's another struggle too, is camps were a lot thinner this year. It's like, if you didn't recruit and you didn't have your team coming into camp, then would you have a team? Could you field the team? So looking at, obviously in the internet age, it's really nice to have that data out there. But when you're recruiting, when you haven't seen players play, it becomes a whole different animal.
I got a good recruitment story, actually. It's back from when I played. A good buddy of mine, Mark Walton, he was being recruited to the BCHL. At 17, he was like the last cut from the Powder River Kings. And he does his, we were all back in Victoria already. We had gone to our camps and had been released. So he was the last one left of the group. And we had heard he had a really good chance to make the team. So, long story short, he was released that year, and in his exit interview, they said you're not quite big enough. Mark's not a very big guy, and obviously at 17 you get pushed around a little bit playing against older players of that caliber. So anyway, Mark plays the year with us. He has another great year. He's plays in all situations, and so in the off season he takes that to heart, and he tries to bulk up. Well, he went on a diet plan for like a 260-pound man. And he put a ton of muscle on, and he shows up to camp with us, the next season before he goes away to his junior A Powell River again. And we look at him like, you are massive. Like, he put on a ton of muscle. So anyway, he goes to Powell River, and they're recruiting him again. And he goes there, and same thing. He gets down to like the last 2 or 3 guys left at camp. He gets released. He goes to his exit interview, and he goes, "You know what, man? I know we said you were too small last year, but you're a little too big and slow this year."
Well, he was a pit bull for the Cougars. Like, you stick him in front of the net, and he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but it goes to show. Like, I think for us this year, we haven't had that luxury. We haven't had a chance to work with players. And last year, you're kind of taking a flyer on every kid you talk to. You don't know what he looked like last year. You don't know what he's done in the offseason this year. So just that kind of falls into Sam's story. Like, if you're a kid who's being recruited, there's nothing to go off, really. You're really just going off. Maybe you played 1 or 2 games last year, and you can go off that. But for the most part, you're just taking word of mouth. So it's been different.
You do have, friends in other leagues like that to be able to recruit players. Obviously, the Cougars have brought in a number of players from Calgary, and there has been, throughout the years, a number of players coming from one region. When you've got nothing to physically watch on a player, how much faith are you putting into that word of mouth, talking to that coach? Like, everything?
Everything, yeah. I mean, obviously, you can elite prospects a kid and see what he did for points. But for me, the best players, it doesn't necessarily reflect points. I mean, there's a lot of kids who get points who, are playing in a younger league, or they're playing a really good line with kids who are, WHL prospects and stuff like that. So you're really going to be mindful of the elite prospects thing. Word of mouth coaches, obviously talking to their coach. What kind of player is he? Can he play in all situations? What are his strengths and weaknesses? That's all stuff that kind of factors into what you're looking for. For us this year, we obviously knew we lost 6 20-year-olds up front. So we knew we had to find some guys who could score, and we knew we had guys here who could step up. But we had to find guys like the Connor Delays and the Aiden Turners and those kind of guys. And, we have Jake Watson there now as well that can come in and they can contribute offensively, but also, not be a liability defensively, because they're coming in to fill big minutes. So it's not like they're coming here just to score goals and then not do anything else. They have to kind of be able to contribute everywhere.
Now, you mentioned one name. I wanted to ask you about this. You got one of the newer players on the roster is Jake Watson. He's listed as from Ashington, England. What's the story behind him? How did he end up in a Cougars jersey?
So he was at Rink Hockey Academy last year, and Sunil had talked to him a couple of times. He actually had committed to out in the SJ. He was committed out there, so he was a junior A player as far as we were concerned. But I guess he lived in England when he was young. He moved here when he was 3 or 4, is my understanding, and he's lived in Vernon ever since. So, but yeah, he went to camp. Obviously, it didn't work out, and Sunil reached out and did a good job and talked to him. And he had some connections to North Oak. He'd AP'd there before, obviously being close to home. And we just talked to him a little bit, and kind of told him about the program and what we thought we had to offer. And we talked to his parents, and they agreed with us that we were a good fit for him. And yeah, and here he is. He's been good so far.
So what, Cam? This is your first year as a coach. What's it like being on the bench?
It's
with a broken leg.
Yeah, on the bench with crutches the whole season so far.
Yeah, that hasn't been as fun. Obviously, I can't wait to be standing on 2 feet, but it's been really cool. I've really enjoyed it, and it's cool to kind of switch aspects and learn again. You're kind of starting again. You feel like a rookie, and you kind of just take everything in from these guys and learn what you can. But I've really enjoyed being on the bench and being able to kind of work with the guys as a coach as opposed to their teammate the year before. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic you have between some of the players that, a year ago I was on the bench in gear playing beside him, and now I'm trying to tell them what to do on the ice. So you kind of have some conflict with it. And yeah, you kind of have some respect from some of the guys, but, some guys aren't afraid to give it back to you and, tell you wouldn't have made that play either when you played. So.
Well, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. You've got the transition from player to coach at this level, because it is a developmental league. You're developing these players, but you yourself are also being developed, because there are a lot of younger junior B coaches that are looking at maybe making that jump to the junior A or beyond, or there's been a lot of junior B coaches that are just happy staying there. But Cam, you were in gear on the bench a year ago. Sam, you basically did the same thing, maybe not with the Cougars right away, but you went from in gear on the bench to behind the bench within a couple of months, and you end up coaching your teammates. That's got to be a strange transition.
Yeah, it was a really cool transition, I think, because Brody, myself, Cam, and even Jake, we had a leadership role within the team. So you almost already had that respect because like they saw you do it day in, day out, and you were a leader on the team, and what you were doing, you led by example. So when you go into that coach's role, yeah, you have that respect, but you also need to walk that fine line of, okay, these are still my good friends, but I'm kind of in that coaching role. So how can I play that line really, really well, where I tell them kind of what to do, but keep that fine line of being an authoritative figure. Maybe it goes more towards Brody or myself if it's Cam, the situation. Like when I first started coaching, I would be that best friend type of coach where I would tell them, hey, like this time do this. Or if when I started coaching with Saanich, with Brad came down on them, I would go and like try to pick them back up and like say, hey, next time just do this, and be kind of that soft voice in the room.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, exactly. And you are almost trying to coach them by being their friend. And it's a cool position to be in because it teaches you a lot of life lessons as well. Like you're going to have tough conversations with friends in the workplace. If you and your buddy get in a fight or whatever it is, you have to have those tough conversations if you want to keep that relationship strong. And it really teaches you more than just coaching. It teaches you a lot of life skills as well.
Now, Cam, you went from the Saanich Braves to the Victoria Cougars, then to the coach of the Victoria Cougars, all within a very short span. That must be three completely different worlds.
100%, yeah. It was a big culture shock, even going from the Braves to the Cougars as a player. I mean, at the time, I don't think I really knew one player on the Cougars, so I was coming in, meeting 20 new guys, meeting a whole new coaching staff, and leaving a place where I had, 20 best friends. And so that in itself was a big change, but I grew to love the Cougars very quickly, and the program itself is amazing. And no knock on Saanich. I love my time at Saanich as well, but I did end up spending a lot more time with the Cougars than Saanich, so really grew to like there. And obviously now I wanted to stick around and become a coach, so stuck here now.
Now, Brody, your journey is a little different. So you played I think you played your entire junior B career with the Cougars. You did very well, championships. I think you still hold the single season scoring record for the VI. I remember calling that game. That was a lot of fun. But you didn't immediately make that jump to coach. You kind of had to be dragged in, as far as I know.
Well, I did also play one game for the West Shore Stingers when I was 16, so I'm not just a Cougar through and
Oh,
through.
okay. So yeah.
What a program.
The team that folded.
Yeah.
Brody fooled them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm at fault. But yeah, no, obviously I played forever with the Cougars. I played there my whole career, so it's all I really knew. For me, I took a year off after I finished. I obviously I was still trying to pursue playing. I mean, obviously I had opportunities to go a few places, and for me, I really was torn up between staying here and working and moving on with my life and pursuing hockey. So that's probably the reason mostly why I didn't get involved coaching right away. I wasn't sure on what I wanted to do right up until September. I actually think after my 20-year-old season, I went and skated at Cougars main camp because I was still, trying to pursue opportunities. But then obviously a year went by. I started working, and then I played on a slow pitch team with Marco in the summer already. So he asked me one night, we had a few beers at the local, and he said, hey, would you be interested in coaching? And I'm like, well, sure, I'll try it and see how it goes. And, here I am 10 years later, I'm still hooked. But, yeah, it's been great. I mean, I've loved every minute of it. I mean, I say every year that, this is what keeps me coming back. I want to win that final game. I haven't done it yet, so that's why I'm still here. But, yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun.
Now, for the newer Cougars fans, because we do get a lot of transition with new families coming in with young players and everything like that, Brody, I want to talk to you about your other sport. Now, growing up, you weren't always a hockey kid because you were a big baseball boy. And I remember this because I was the umpire-in-chief at Triangle, and I actually umpired Brody when he was pitching. And, what directed you to hockey over baseball?
Yeah, for most of my life, I always thought I would pursue baseball. I think it was definitely a sport I was stronger at young. And I ended up making a decision when I was after grade 9. I moved schools completely, left all my friends at Belmont, and went to Lambert Park Academy downtown and played baseball every day and played in the Victoria Mariner program for a couple of years. And then it came to a point, kind of a similar situation as to hockey, where I had to make a decision. Do I want to leave the city, and do I want to go to college and play down in the States? Had a few opportunities to go do that, and now I just thought about it, and then at that point, I had actually AP'd a few games with Victoria, and I was liking the junior hockey experience. And I had never put any thought into playing hockey, really. I always played for fun, more to keep myself in shape in the off season. So once I kind of got the taste of junior and what it was all about, and to be honest, the thought of getting to put a visor on was pretty big too. That was something I really looked forward to. So baseball just kind of I got a little bit tired. Maybe I did it too much, and we got a little bored of it. And one thing I always, now looking back on what I always say too is baseball is a very individual sport. I definitely enjoyed more the team aspect of hockey. Baseball, I find it's, when you're hitting, it's you versus the pitcher. When you're playing defense, it's you versus, the batter, so to speak. And hockey's definitely more team oriented. I think that's something that Marco kind of instilled in me was, the team aspect is so great and so rewarding if you have success at it. So that's something that I think just kind of drove me towards hockey. And like you say, I play slow pitch now, but that's about it. So,
well, there's nothing wrong with games that encourage drinking while you're playing.
Exactly,
so.
That's the best kind.
Now, is there any other sports that the other two play? I don't know if at a competitive level is the right term, but if hockey wasn't involved, what sport would you be playing there, Sam?
Yeah, it's
he's a slow pitch guy too.
Yeah, we're on the same slow pitch team. I definitely am the leader there for home runs. But growing up, so my family's actually a big basketball family. I'm the odd one out actually that plays hockey. But growing up a lot, my sister played for UVic. She was the captain there. Graduated there on her 5th year, and then my brother was a basketball player as well. But he also has a really big brain, so he actually went to engineering instead of pursuing basketball.
Odd man out in the family there too.
Yeah, I'm just the odd one out. Yeah. But
he's adopted. Don't tell him.
I think I've been told that before. Yeah, the milkman child.
Yeah.
But yeah. So basketball. I was playing basketball. I played 9 years of soccer. I was before I moved here from Prince George. I was on the goal team of soccer. Played a lot of golf. Brody and I play a lot of golf in the off season.
Another game where you can drink.
Yeah.
Another game. Yeah.
Common theme.
Yeah, very common theme between Brody and I. But yeah, if I was not playing hockey, I would say the sport I was probably the best at was either be basketball or golf. And then obviously as soon as you pick one, it takes over. And I stopped playing basketball and got pretty bad at golf until the last couple of years and found the game again. But
everybody's bad at golf. There's just some people that are less bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So true.
How about you, Cam? What were you doing outside of hockey?
I was a baseball player as well, actually. For me, it was about the opposite of Brody, though. By the time grade 9, I picked hockey and came to Victoria to pursue a career in junior. So I kind of went the other way and still played baseball until grade 12. I just aged out in midget in baseball, and I loved baseball. It was a fun sport. It was a great off-season sport, and I enjoyed it a lot. But hockey just always kind of had just a bit more love for me, a bit more passion for it. So at the right age, it was kind of easy choice for me to make, but I always still love baseball, and not playing now, I really do miss it. But played a little bit of basketball too, actually, in my day, but not too much. Just a bit middle school. I was a little short for basketball, so kind of my career ended once I didn't really grow.
You'd be good libero in volleyball.
Yeah, that's right.
He's the newest recruit in our slow pitch team too.
Yeah.
We got him on the squad. That's our off-season workout plan is the slow pitch game.
So is he catcher? You put him on a stool
No,
behind
he's good. He's good. We play salmon right field. That's where we play all our the studs.
the scrubs out there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Sargi takes over for shortstop for me when I'm not allowed to play. So
Yeah, when Brody's on dad duty, I get shortstop.
right.
Yeah. Well, there's another sign him now. Get the young one on the roster.
Yeah.
Well,
Got a Cougar jersey for him yet?
We're working on it.
Well, speaking about recruitment, with us pull the same treatment that you did with me. When Brody wasn't coaching yet, and I think there was something behind it, but I was playing for the Braves, and Brody's like, "Hey man, you want to go grab a dinner?" I was like, "Sure." And we're just going out as buddies, and had a couple of drinks, had some nachos, and we just started talking, and the drinks were flowing. We're having a good time, and then sure enough, later, about a month later, I was a part of the Cougars, and I'm like, "What just happened?" So before Brody was even a coach for the Cougars, he was recruiting for them. So we just had to do the same thing for Sargi.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, let's wind this down a little bit. Are any of you guys actually active on social media?
A little bit.
I usually get at this point in the show, I usually get people to plug themselves. Like, I know, Brody, you spend more time on the Cougars Instagram than anything.
Yeah, I'm at victoriacougars.com or whatever we are.
Yeah.
It's Cougars JR Hockey. It's my account. I just gave him the password.
That's right.
And then, how about you, Cam? Anywhere Anywhere people can stalk you?
I guess my Instagram's @LaSargent11. I'm not very active on it. Kind of a once a year post guy.
Oh,
So
is it worth it then?
I'd say probably not worth it. No.
Oh, okay. Well, if you make that one a year worth it, then it might be worth it. How about you, Sam?
My Instagram is Mulls with a Z 19. My Instagram is pretty much Brody and I. So it's his Instagram is me and him, and then my Instagram is me and him as well. We get the brother question a lot when we're out and about. So that's if you want to see Brody and I wake surfing and playing slow pitch, then give it a follow.
Probably shouldn't drink when you're wake surfing, though.
No, we do, but you shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to thank Brody Coulter, Sam McMullen, and Cam LaSargent for joining us here. Special thanks to Independent Sports News and Howie's Car Corral for sponsoring the show. Everyone here at Raw Sportscast, thanks you guys for joining us. So we'll get you back in. Maybe we'll get Stolte on the round table as well. So one more time, thanks again, guys. Have a good night.